What's something you always assumed was normal until you were told otherwise? Up until I was 18, I followed my mom around the store like a baby duck. It had never occurred to me that I was free to wander by myself or look at the things I wanted. I would just walk right behind her and stay at her side. By the time my kids were 8 or 9, I would ask them to go get things for me. That may have freed them to go ask if they could go look at toys or get the free cookie from the bakery, etc. I thought parents telling their kids, "I'm proud of you," is weird movie stuff and nobody does that. Mine never did that. I thought that everyone viewed the world in the same way that I did, such as seeing colors from sound, from synesthesia. Insert high school crush and making a mixtape, asking them why they put so and so colors together, and find out that it is in fact not something that everyone has. That's actually really cool. You could probably make really great music with that gift. Thanks. I actually taught myself how to play guitar by associating the colors to the chords. However, I did not pursue music as a career because I enjoy it way too much and didn't want it to be my main source of income. There, however, are musicians out there that have some form of it and do in fact make wonderful music. Growing up in Belfast having soldiers on the streets, until I went on a school trip to London and thought, where's all the soldiers? Single quote. It was strange not seeing any. Moving from England to Australia and now all the police carry 9mm Glocks on their hip. Had to stop myself from staring. I'd never seen a real-life gun before. I was 35 years old, being physically ill after moderate exercise. I thought that's why everyone hated it, but it turns out I have a heart problem and shouldn't be throwing up after spin class. This one's a little dark, but I used to think all parents beat their children. It wasn't until I was 19 and chilling with some friends and we were talking about why none of them heard about my family. I was like, yeah, I hate them all. The only exception being my brother. Told them about my parents and they were like, oh, no, that's not cool. One of my friends who also got beaten as a kid told me, yeah, that's not supposed to happen, and basically explained how he found out. On a similar vein, I had brothers who would constantly hit me, punch me, slap me, and were just genuinely horrible to me. My parents never reprimanded them for it, so I just thought it was normal. That's what older siblings did. Wasn't until I was 14 or so and mentioned it to a male friend, who informed me he had never ever laid a hand on his sisters, that I realized it wasn't normal to get beat up by your brothers. We used to have a pine cone tree in our backyard and my mom loved collecting them, so our house was filled with it. I thought everyone had pine cones laying around in their homes, and it is normal until I went to a friend's house and asked where his pine cones are. Yo dog, where that pine cone at though? I always thought that the kids in my class were the youngest in their family, like me. I also always thought that they had both parents that were married. I also always thought that they had grandparents who lived far away. I also thought that they went to church on Sundays. It's interesting how we as children perceive the world from our experiences and then how as adults, those and more experiences shape us into the people that we are until we die. Neglect. Literally had to learn how to cook on a stove at 6. Along with my other siblings. I have no idea where the hell my parents were. They didn't work. My kids are 6 and 8 and can't imagine leaving them to their own devices. I remember we would fry up bologna, hot dogs, ham, then eventually meat, stir fry, whatever we could find. Sometimes it would be just cereal or crackers and cheese. We would take turns frying up our bologna like it was an assembly line. Like, I still talk about it now as adults to my siblings. There is 10 of us, and it just boggles our minds because it was just so normal for us. We were those kids who got their meals at school. Up until a certain age, I remember my mom was an amazing, attentive mom, and all of a sudden she did the complete 180. She became addicted to gambling. So much so that she would slang the welfare, and I don't remember her for 90% of my childhood from 5-ish to 22. Around 11 years ago my mom straightened up. She has disappeared for 2 to 3 days a few times over the years, but I could tell she's full of regrets when she comes home. We have forgiven her because she has had a really f***ed up life. She survived the Khmer Rouge and an extremely abusive marriage. Forced to wed at 13 to my old-ass dad who is 35. So she had a lot of trauma. When you talk to my mom, it's like talking to a 14-year-old girl. She's 76 right now. Definitely maladaptive daydreaming. I'd assumed that everyone else also had a very active, fantastical world going on in their heads too. And it was only after I asked my mom what did she think about when listening to music and she said the lyrics or something like that, that I'd realized I was probably different. High five. I am perpetually telling myself stories in my head. I try to write them down, but it's hard to describe the images I have in mind without the writing style being clunky and heavy. Music is a fantastic mood maker and ignites my imagination like crazy. I recommend 2 Steps from Hell. It'll throw you in for a loop. Well, I thought the song Wonderful Tonight about a couple going out and enjoying their night together and having a lovely time was fucking absurd until I was about 15. Because in my household everything, every journey, every holiday, every night out my mother took with her partner, ended up in screaming and violence. I just didn't think it was possible for people to go out and have a lovely time and thought the song was really stupid and unrealistic because of it. And then she asked me, do I look alright? And I said, you bitch, you ruined my fucking life. Haha. She was usually the one who started it, to be fair. Some people love drama, moving out so many times and not growing up in one home. Almost all of my classmates only had moved 1 or twice. When I was like 10 I had moved 7 or 8 times. No friends from kindergarten. No, we've been best friends our whole life, always the oddball new guy per gallon, and people assume you're in the military. I thought everyone could identify a note without a reference note, just as easily as we can identify colors. Turns out I have perfect pitch. Probably the least sad comment in this entire thread. Well, having a circumcised dick for sure. I remember being shocked when I heard some people get part of their dick cut off. Yep, and if you say it's messed up people act like you're being ridiculous. I particularly don't get the religious reasoning. God created man in his image. So the very first thing we do is cut off a piece. Religion and logic don't really see eye to eye. I don't mind being circumcised, but I absolutely hate that I didn't have a choice. Taking 5 hours to fall asleep. I thought 8 hours of sleep included all the hours it took to fall asleep until I met my now husband, who falls asleep in 10 minutes. I thought he must be ill to do that. I'm on medication now. It's down to 1 to 2 hours most days, and I go to bed early enough to get 8 hours of actual sleep each night. I always thought panic attacks were totally normal to experience once a week, and then I realized I have anxiety. Don't worry, I have a therapist, I'm good. For over 30 years I tied my shoelaces in such a way that they would come undone all the time, and so I usually did a double knot. I have since learned the way everyone else does it does not lead to such problems. Stranger yet, my muscle memory has completely changed and I can't even remember the stupid way I used to do it. You trippin'? What? Mine always come apart unless I double knot them. What is this new way? So when you pull the second lace through to make the bow, pull it all the way through. Loop around and make the bow on the second pull through. I thought everyone was just exaggerating in movies when it came to hearing their inner voice or daydreaming, having a flashback and actually seeing images. I thought, surely this isn't real. They're only doing this for context. That obviously doesn't happen in real life. Well, flash forward to this year where I learned that not only do some people actually hear themselves when they think, But some people can actually see real images when they imagine something. My thoughts are and have always been silent and invisible. I can't believe there's people out there that can just hear and see shit just by thinking it. My little sister can see and hear her thoughts, and the discussions we have about it are mind-blowing. Wait, you don't hear yourself when you think? Do you have an internal monologue? I've heard people talk about the voice they think in, but I don't really have that. I can think in a voice with words, but for me that's a step away from talking aloud to myself. Most of my thoughts are not in words or voiced unless I choose to think that way. Yeah, I'm like that too. I don't need to think in words, but sometimes I do. Sometimes in images, but it's hard to explain. Say if I'm looking at something and need to picture something in my mind's eye, I just kinda zone out for a second. Eyes still open and visualize what I'm picturing. If I do that for longer, it's like my reptile brain is, say, watching a sports game on TV, but I'm picturing a specific beach or something. Hold up a second, WTF. 8. I've always assumed that everyone can just see and hear shit just by thinking it. Do you not have an inner voice? I still struggle to comprehend that most people haven't left their home state. Because of my dad's work, I've spent my whole life traveling the country. Australia. I had visited every capital city by age 14. Spent more time on beaches and planes with family than hanging out with friends. And I'm perfectly fine traveling in a car for 9 hours a day. So hearing people say they've never left their home city, or never seen the ocean, just boggles me. I recall telling friends about a camping trip we had planned. They saying it was a 4-hour drive, and them saying, "That's so long. I couldn't stand driving for that long." I was rather confused, because 4 hours is nothing? Apparently it is. I just forgot that not everyone is used to travel. I agree. Australia is such a beautiful country. Why wouldn't someone spend 4 hours in a car to see more of it? I mean, take a book or something if it bothers you that much. Right, there's so much to see. I really wish I could remember everything from my travels, but I was too young to appreciate it all. TL. Doctor. As a child I thought it was normal to want to die and to have panic attacks every day. I've had very severe depression my whole life and anxiety issues that I didn't resolve until recently, but I thought everything I experienced was normal as a child. I remember having my first major depressive episode when I was 3, where I had an about a week-long breakdown because my hands were too small and weak to open a box. So my kid brain thought I would never be able to achieve as much as everyone else did and that I was worthless. When I reached school age, I had a panic attack every day because I was afraid I had forgotten my homework. And if I didn't have my attack that day, I thought I was being a slacker and would force myself to worry over my homework so much until I had a panic attack. I just thought that I was a diligent student and wanted to be the best. But only until I started to learn more about mental health in middle school and high school did I realize that these things were not normal. I'm a little better now because I'm conscious of my feelings and don't reinforce negative feelings anymore. But I still am an incurable workaholic, to the point where I miss out on a lot of life because I work so much. It's incredibly sad to me that I lived in such misery for most of my conscious life, and I will have repercussions from it for my whole life. I read the TL. Doctor and immediately thought, oh, this isn't good. In all seriousness though, I hope you're doing better now. Picking up dirt clods in the backyard before my dad mowed our 5 acres. They can get rocks. My sisters and I would compete to find the biggest ones. Other kids in the country would get involved and my dad made a thing of it. When we moved to a smaller property in a new town, a friend's dad said he was getting ready to mow and I asked my friend who was going to clear the clods. That was the first time in my life I've genuinely felt stupid explaining something to another person. Something about a poop night. I knew someone was gonna mention this. Lol. I thought everyone's mouth tingled or stung when they ate chocolate. I just assumed it was acidic and inflammatory. When I was 15, I finally lamented to someone about how annoying those side effects were, and they were like, "You monsieur.no." And that's when I found out I am allergic to chocolate. It does not stop me, but it is still scary to know one day it could escalate. I thought lasagna was annoyingly sticky and always got caught in your throat, making it hard to breathe. Mushroom allergy. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.